Hey, what is good, everyone? Yes, the Fuji XT4. Yes, I've got hands-on with it now. Shout out to Fuji for actually sending it over. But I wanted this video to be hopefully a quick video of me going through how I've dialed in the settings for this camera, specifically more for the video side of things, and just kind of like what I found out for myself and how I feel the camera's set up to help me get the best video process when it comes to making content. So yeah, man, these are my ideal and my best settings for getting video from the Fuji XT4. So yeah, I've got the XT4, it's the camera body. I've got the f2.8 16-55mm as well as the f1.4 35mm prime XF as well. This has been the main one I've been using because of that constant f2.8, the linear motors, and also the weather sealing as well. It's a really good combination, and by the time you guys watch it, I'm most likely gonna have my own personal XT4. This is the one that Fuji has obviously sent me, like I've said, but what I will do is have a review coming for these cameras and obviously the lenses as well. But I just wanted to dive in and pretty much go through the video settings for this camera and what has kind of been working for me. And again, I'm probably going to do updates to this and might develop over time, but this is what I've kind of figured out for me that works best. So let's dive into it. So I've got it into the screen recorder, so we're just trying to feed it out. So I'll try and show it on the screen as much as possible and just kind of go through it. So this is with the movie mode dial flicked to movie away from still. That's one of the great things about the XT4 versus the XT3. You can pretty much separate the movie and the stills mode so that your settings are pretty much separate from each other. So movie mode for me, and from the first page you can see that you've got the movie mode, and this is page 1, movie setting, and pretty much most of my videos are shot in the 4K UHD 16:9 at 24p, and with that being at 24p, I've pretty much got that, well, 24p or the 23.98p, and usually 200 megabits per second because I don't have a V60 card that shoots and is able to, or V60 or V90 UHS-II card that shoots at a high 400 megabits per second, and that's something that is recommended. My normal UHS-I card works at the 200 megabits, so I usually stick it around there. Obviously for certain slow-mo stuff, I've got the 60 frames a second, and yeah, that's pretty much my movie mode. File compression, usually I shoot in the H.265 format because obviously that gives me the 10-bit internal. If you shoot in the the H.264, you get the 420 8-bit, whereas obviously the H.265 is the 420 color sampling with 10-bit. So I usually shoot in a 10-bit, get the information. Compression technique is long GOP because the all intra codec needs a V60 memory card internally to do that, or a V90 card, which I don't have, so I usually just stick it in long op. High speed or the full HD high speed recording, which is the super slow motion. And when that is turned on, as you can see, it conforms it in the camera. It doesn't shoot it as individual frames with audio. So it conforms it in camera, and you can basically tell it what you want to conform it to, from whether it's 240 frames a second at full high definition or 120, and conform it in camera down to 24 frames, 25, 30, 50p or 60 frames a second. But usually I conform it down to the 23.98 or 24p or 24 frames a second. From 120, 240 is a bit, you get a lot of aliasing. The footage isn't as clean as I would like, so I don't really use it that much. But yeah, I conform it down, and you can see where it says how slow it is, 5 times slow motion, and how long the recording will be based on what you get. Fixed movie crop magnification. This setting is very interesting. It's kind of like one of my favorite features because you will see, like what I discussed with the XT3 and what I will be discussing with the XT4, is that certain shooter modes, especially the specialist shooter modes and the digital stabilization that you get in there, add an additional crop onto the sensor, whether it's an additional 1.1x crop, 1.18 times crop, or 1.29x crop. And if you're someone that's shooting, especially in a run and gun situation, whether you're vlogging or you're doing different things and you don't want your focal length, look and field of view to change, you can fix it at that 1.29x crop magnification, not form factor, magnification. And it's something that you know, the camera will communicate it to you on the top left, as you can see on the screen, where it tells you the crop on the top left at 1.29x crop across all the shooter modes. And it's you know, it's quite useful in that sense if you want to keep everything consistent. So that's kind of like low-key one of my favorite features. Next one is the F-Log and the HLG recording mode. And what's great is that you've got different options and how you want the F-Log to be recorded internally and externally. Like for example, you've got standard recording internally as well as externally via the HDMI out. You can then also do F-Log internally and F-Log externally via the HDMI out, which is obviously where you get the 422 full chroma subsampling. And then you can do something like standard recording internally, as you can see on the third row, and F-Log externally. Or you can actually do F-Log internally, as you can see on the fourth row, and standard recording via the HDMI externally. Or you can do HLG, which is obviously the hybrid log camera, internally and externally at the same time. So that level of flexibility, especially when you have something like an external recorder, it's really, really nice on a Fuji XT4 as well as the XT4, as you can see here. 4K movie output, keep it at 4K obviously, but again, level of flexibility that you can see whether you want it internally or externally to have full high definition or 4K, but I just keep it at 4K. And then you've got the movie mode out there as well, which is something that you can change with full high definition internally or externally, or keep it standard. HDMI input output, and I've got it on now because obviously I'm screen recording it for you guys to see the settings, but usually actually I do keep it on when I'm plugging the camera into my external monitor. Although it has a flip screen, I like to use the external monitor as well from the computer, and I like to see the settings on there as well, so I don't necessarily always put a clean HDMI output. Now turning that off is what you need to do when you're live streaming. So if you've not tested and seen, this camera does output 4K UHD up to DCI as well, 60 frames a second via the HDMI port, which is great. So if you have like an Elgato 4K 60 Pro, you can actually live stream with this in 4K 60 with autofocus if you have enough upload bandwidth, which for YouTube I believe is 20,000 kilobits or 20 megabits per second upload, all the way up to 50 megabits per second upload as well. So this is one of only few cameras that can actually, in a hybrid form, next to cameras like the GH5S and the GH5, that can actually live stream in 4K 60, but this has autofocus, which is really good. So that's what that setting is for. Standby quality in 4K, HDMI recording control on, very good for if you have an external recorder like a Ninja, where you press record on the Ninja, it starts recording internally and externally at the same time, proxies and backup recording. The image stabilization mode, as you can see, you have three settings. You have the IBIS and the OIS. The IBIS and the digital image stabilization that's on there that applies an additional 1.1x crop, as well as completely turning it off when you're in a studio environment like this and it's more controlled, where you don't need the IBIS. But yeah, that's pretty much the setting there. IBIS boost, I leave it off. This is just something that is really meant to be for still situations, but I leave it off personally. Now zebra settings, I've got in the pattern of the right, and I've put the zebra levels at 85 just to give me room. You know, you can leave it at 100% if you want, but 85 just gives me room to make sure that my highlights, when I'm using it to monitor, I'm not clipping. Now optimize movie control. What this does is the physical dials at the top that you usually use to set and lock the exposures, whether it's shutter speed or ISO, it locks and it disables it. And what you can do is use in the quick menus the touch controls to control the settings changes that you want. But what you're going to see later on is that the dials in front and the back is something I've set to be able to do that much more easily. Tally lights, I love the tally light option. What I have set for the tally light is that the front and the rear tally light flash, so that I can actually see that as recording. And what I do usually when I'm shooting B-roll, I turn it off so that the flashing light doesn't go on any of the objects that I'm recording. But the great thing is it's not that garish red light that you're used to seeing. For tally, it's a soft white, you know, pulsing light, which is really nice to see. So that's how I have it on when I'm recording. I haven't saved any settings here. Next is also image quality setting page 1, which is film simulation. If I'm not recording an F-Log, definitely got that in Eterna, has to be done. Eterna's nice, gives a nice filmic look and enough room to grade as well. Auto white balance, and auto white balance is very good in here. And also one thing I would recommend is a setting to lock it on and off, which I will show you. All of this I don't really mess with, I just leave on 0, and that's pretty much, you know, it for this IQ image quality setting. Now you've got the AF menu page 1. Focus area, as you can see, it kind of shows you the complete focus area. And then when you come back in and you've got that here, you've got that in area for the movie AF mode. You've got the AFC custom setting and also the AF illuminator off. So custom setting is something that I've put here. This is the setting I found works best for me. I can fine tune it a bit more for the f2.8 16 to 55mm lens that I'm using right now. The f1.4 35mm that you can see here, that's still work in progress. I've done a decent amount of talking head with it, so I'll do a little feedback on the settings that I found for that. Autofocus, of course, autofocus is something that I leave on automatic, and it's something that you can actually turn off as well. I've got a custom button which I will show you for that. Manual focus assist, so you've got that here where the peaking is with red color and it's high when I'm doing manual focus. Focus check I've turned off. Instant AF setting is AFC continuous, so I've put that there. Pixel as well as touchscreen to focus, that is also on, and focus check lock I've turned off. Now, one thing I do love about Fuji cameras is their audio settings. So their audio settings is great in the sense that you've got two separate audio settings, right? You've got the internal microphone when there's no microphone plugged in, and you can set a separate external audio level for your external audio that you've got rigged up, which is really good because there might be situations where when you plug it out, you might forget to change the level. So it's great that there's different level settings. So the mic jack setting I've put under mic. Limiter I've taken off, wind filter I've taken off, low cut filter I've taken off, and the headphones playback with the audio monitoring internal with the camera is at maximum level just to make sure that I can hear everything properly. Time code wise, I don't mess with this because I'm not using an external recorder at the minute, so there's no reason for me to mess with the time code settings for HDMI and stuff. And we go into here, pretty much wrapping it up. User setting, as you can see, the format, and also how you can obviously format the memory cards, the SD cards. Time and date, that's pretty much been set. And also time difference, language, my menu setting. I haven't touched the my menu settings yet, so this is probably something that I'll probably do a separate video to really harper on that. When it comes to battery age, kind of shows you that the new battery that's in there is still brand new. These are very new systems and different to the XT3. Reset and regulatory. Now, if we actually go back and we go into dial settings, right? Focus level is setting, that's on. And if you go to the quick menu, this is where it's really important. I set mine to 12 slots. And what I've done is I've set this first box to be the movie mode and resolution with the aspect ratio. That's what I've set it as. Then I've set this one as the frame rate. Then I've set this one as the bit rate. And if you go down here, I've got the white balance. Then this box, I've got the ISO, and then I've got the super slow motion mode set here, shutter speed, OIS, and the stability, fixed movie crop, which is obviously gonna crop everything in 1.29x, the leveler audio setting, and also the touchscreen to focus. That's how I've set my quick menu, and I'm gonna show you why I've done it that way and where I've slotted it. Function buttons, this is another key one. You will see that there's a button on the right next to the shutter button where the on and off switch is, and that's where I've actually enabled to disable and enable eye detection autofocus. Next one, function 2. I've put the function 2, which is the function button, at the front top right where the lens cap is, where the release is right at the top. I've put that as the quick menu activation, and I'm going to explain to you why. When I usually use it as a selfie camera, I can usually press the quick menu button on the front of the camera, and I can use the touchscreen functions to actually change the settings on the camera with the touchscreen, which is very useful. So the normal quick setting button, you'll see that there is another one that is by default there. Auto exposure when you press it up, and also you've got the film simulations function on the left on the touchpad there, white balance as well on the right, and then also you've got the performance boost, whether you want to change it into economy, performance boost. That's where you actually see it, and it prioritizes things like the speed, the brightness, the EVF priority when it comes to things like high frame rate, high resolution, and brightness. And also you manage that based on the battery life that you're looking to get as well. The touchscreen functionality is something that I've disabled because there is a setting in Fuji where you can actually swipe up and down, left, right to bring different functions onto the screen. That's something I've just personally disabled. I don't need it. It's not something I need. Now, the auto exposure, auto white balance, that dial, I've changed it to auto white balance, and I've turned it into a setting where on and off you can lock the white balance once you set it automatically so that it doesn't change. Very useful. And that's the function button at the back that I've set it to, which is right behind, or right on top of the joystick, sorry. So that's why I put it there. AF on, I've put that as left where it's on and off, and also using that to obviously magnify, and the quick menu. So the quick menu button on the back and the front, that's by default at the back. On the front, I put it as a custom button so that when I'm at the back and the front, I've got easy access when I'm selfieing or behind the camera to change through the settings, through the resolutions and the shooting modes that I need very quickly. Now, command dial settings, this is where it's very important, because obviously you can use the touchscreen, and the dials at the top have been locked and disabled because of obviously the optimized movie touchscreen setting. What I've done is that the dial at the front, the scroll wheel, I've put that as the f-stop aperture, as you can see right there. ISO, when you press down, it allows me to switch the ISO when I've got the command for it if it's not in auto ISO mode. There isn't a third function. You can have three functions there, sorry, but I don't need it. And then the shutter speed is at the back, which is very, very useful, especially when you're in the quick menu settings and you're behind the camera. It's very, very tactile in that sense. And you can use that to obviously scroll through and dial in as well. Shutter AF, that is something I've put for continuous, for shooting and continuous exposure. I've put that there as well. Shoot without lens on, very useful. Turn this on if you're planning to actually use vintage lenses and manual lenses. That's where you turn it on, or else it won't not actually recognize the lenses. So that's another trick that you need to make sure. Shoot without a card, I've left on. Focus ring, I've left it as clockwise as it was, linear. And also this is programmed, and that's where you can see that it's on and off. So if you go here, that's for the AF setting, and then obviously the white balance as well, that's the on and off switch. So you can see that when you press it, it turns it on and off. Or for example, the auto white balance, when you press it, it locks it in, and then when you press it again, it disables it. Aperture is obviously there where I've put it under command rather than automatic. So with the aperture ring to A, usually I can just use the ring at the front to change the aperture without using the aperture ring, so that I don't accidentally change anything. Touchscreen settings, I've put the touchscreen on when we're going through, like, you know, the viewfinder, and also like watching back pictures, and also touchscreen as well for playback, and obviously for photography as well. The double tap and the touch function, like I said, the touch function where you can swipe up to bring up different functions, I've disabled that, I don't need it. And the EVF touchscreen area settings, I've turned off as well when I'm using the EVF. And yeah, pretty much that is my overall settings. This isn't necessarily too much of an exciting video as such, but I feel like this is the best settings that I've dialed in for my video. Any Fuji users out there, because obviously I'm new to the system, any Fuji users out there, any feedback that you have for a much simpler workflow to allow the settings to be dialed in to make using video on here a lot easier, let me know in the comment section below. I'll probably do a follow-up video when I get my personal XT4 in-house. But overall, hopefully this might help someone in terms of how the settings should be, or should be dialed in for the quick menu, for the overall settings, and also the physical dials when actually using it for video. That's about it for me, man. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope you found it informative. If you like videos like this, you know what to do. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're part of Team TLS, the Tech Lover Squad, so you don't miss videos that come fresh off the press into your inbox. I hope you guys have a good one. I hope you guys are safe. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.